this English class. And I realized that even as I get up here, several speak Spanish, some Italian is spoken, and any number of other languages. Bear with me, okay? I never taught English in school. I didn't really like English classes, but I realized it was a necessary. And so today I want us to go in and really kind of appreciate what Peter's saying. So go in, if you would, into 1 Peter, first chapter. And while you're turning over there, I'm going to relay a story to try and whet your appetite. And it's a story I've told before. Hey, you can't sneak in here. My day just got a whole lot better. Anyways, it's a story I've shared with you before. And it's about when Linda and I would go to a bookstore in South Carolina. And as we would go to the bookstore in South Carolina, she would invariably ask for, can we get coffee? And I'd say, sure, I like coffee. So we would go over and I'd order the coffee. And I would ask her, what do you want? How do you want your coffee made? And she'd say, well, I want a decaf soy latte with sweetener. Ain't no man gonna order that. But I did. And finally the guy said, what's the point of that? You get no sugar, you get no caffeine, there's no real dairy taste. What's the point? It was a valid question. And so a lot of times we'll sit back and we'll ask the same thing. What's the whole point of life? What are we doing? Have you ever sat back and wondered that? What's the point? Because life swallows us up. It gets frustrating. It gets exasperating. And it seems like there is no end to the misery. Peter deals with that. Peter, in his epistle, tries to get us to understand that there is so much more to get out of life. There is a point in life. And there is a way that we can find calm, a way we can find hope, a way we can find peace. James wrote in his epistle, consider it all joy, my brother, when you encounter various trials. But when Peter writes, he points out the following. You're right there. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who reside as aliens, scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia, who are chosen, according to the foreknowledge of God, the Father, by the sanctifying work of the Spirit, that you may obey Jesus Christ, be sprinkled with his blood. Now, the last part of that. May grace and peace be yours in fullest measure. That's what we want. But go down to verse 6. In this you greatly rejoice, even though now, for a little while, if necessary, you've been distressed by various trials, that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So as Peter lays it out, he says you have a point in life. Yeah, life sometimes rises up and grabs you around the neck. But you as a child of God have something better. You as a child of God have something to hold on to. And he said that distressed by various trials. But what is really amazing to me is the word picture that he paints as you look at this first chapter, because it is one of optimism. And so we started out by going, oh man, this is going to be dour. No. Peter nor James wanted it to be dour. They wanted it to be uplifting, encouraging, stimulating. There was a point to what they were writing. So go back to what Linda ordered. No sweetener. No sugar. No caffeine. Nothing. What's the point? So Peter and James said, you know what? Don't look at life like that. Because I'm going to tell you, here's the point. Here's the point to what life is about. Here's what you can extract from your life as a child of God. So I stand amazed at people who, like Leslie and Linda, and I'm assuming, Leslie, I haven't even seen any of your work. I'm just going on assumption. But it's a good assumption, right? Okay. That they're able to paint and create masterpieces of art. And I stand back and I appreciate that. By the same token, I appreciate those who are able, as wordsmiths, to be able to talk to us and paint a word picture about how blessed we are, how fortunate we are. So he talks about mercy, talks about hope, talks about inheritance, about joy, about being a child. And yes, he does talk about a negative, and that is lust. But he talks about things. He relates easily to us. Now, an adjective is simply a word that is defined as a class of words, which are used to modify a noun or substantive by limiting, qualifying, or specifying. Should go back to voice and articulation. Woo! But it is a class of words. And it gives emphasis too. And that's what we want to talk about. Because they give snap to the various words that we want to talk about. So look at chapter 1, verse 3. He talks about mercy. Mercy in and of itself is a very positive, progressive word. It means unmerited favor. And each one of us has had showered down upon us unmerited favor from God. But now notice what Peter does to it. He talks about a great mercy. Some translations have abundant. But the message is still clear that the mercy is not just meted out, which is good in and of itself. But I want to describe the type of mercy that it is. I want to tell you the magnitude, because it is overflowing. It is plentiful in supply. It is more than abundant. How fortunate we are. Paul, as he writes to the Ephesians in the 2nd chapter, he speaks in those 10 verses about God's mercy, God's grace. And mercy and grace are used interchangeably in many instances. And Paul said, I appreciate God's mercy. In other parts, in other letters, because he talks about how he was a vile, reprobate sinner. But God's mercy was more than sufficient, and it was showered down on him. It was given in an abundant supply. But let's stay with Peter for a minute. Think back. Jason was talking a little while ago about the song, Night with Eben Pinion. Brooded over the veil. And that night, that dark, dark night, there was a betrayal of most precious kind. That Peter denied Christ 3 times. And Christ had told Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. I'll never deny you. Never. After the 3rd time, the cock-a-doodle-doo was heard. And Jesus' eyes met with Peter's. Jesus' face had been punched and brutalized. He had been spat upon. He had been hit over the head with a staff called a reed. And their eyes meet. And Peter goes away and weeps. Weeps bitterly because of what was done. Yet Peter was given mercy. He found help. He was forgiven. So when Peter talks about abundant mercy, he knows of whence he speaks. But see, all sin brings us short of the glory of God. We don't want to sit back and categorize it as saying this sin is greater or that. When the blood of Christ and when God's mercy was showered down on us, it was abundantly. But also there in verse 3 of 1 Peter, Peter talks about hope. Hope. It's a saying about hope springs eternal. There's a little tiny soft spot in me. And it's directed toward the team that lost yesterday in the World Series. I will not mention their name. But I know that hope springs eternal for them. Oh, we came this close, this close. Yeah, we'll get them next year. No, you won't. But it's good to have hope. And I say that tongue in cheek. But it's good to have hope. Because hope spurs on. It is a happy anticipation of good. I hope. I long for. But not is it a hope. It is a hope that is alive. It is a hope that is vibrant, full of interest, and full of vitality. It is said that there was a man who had been taken captive during the war in Vietnam. And he spent years in the Hanoi Hilton. And what he did was he just imagined himself playing golf. He hoped to get out, feel the grass underfoot again, to play golf. He rehearsed every shot. It was what he dreamed of, it what he longed for. It was his hope. And then he was released. And he went. And he played golf. And he was just as bad then as he was before. But that's not the point. The point is that he had hope. We have to have hope. And in this life, we have hope. A living hope, an active hope, a hope sure and steadfast, and one which enters within the veil. It's a hope that, well, we want to have realized. Look back at Hebrews, the 6th chapter. And in Hebrews, the 6th chapter, go with me, if you would, into verse 18. 6:18. Actually, let's start in 17. In the same way, God, desiring even more to show to the heirs of the promise the unchangeableness of his purpose, interposed with an oath, in order that by two unchangeable things, in which it is impossible for God to lie, we may have strong encouragement. We have fled for refuge and laying hold of the hope set before us. This hope we have as an anchor in the soul, a hope both sure, steadfast, one which enters within the veil. God can't lie to us. The minute God lies to us, deity ceases to be deity. So if I've got hope, I know that I can fully expect a favorable outcome. And I want to keep it alive. I want it to be vital. And in order to do that, I have to keep my faith alive and activated. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. I need that hope. Therefore, I need that faith. And my faith is placed in the God of heaven. And if I do my part, God will do his part. And I will not be disappointed. So no matter what goes on in life, no matter how difficult it gets, if I remain steadfast, if I hold on, it will all work out. Earlier this year, our son Adam, we didn't know what was going on with him. You all, many of you know him, you know how big he is. But for him to sit in his recliner and cry because of the pain, and we kept saying, we're going to get you to the hospital, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Will they help me? Will they stop the pain? Yes. And the more they tried, the worse it became. We had to keep giving him hope. When they wanted to cut off his foot, his leg, we kept giving him hope. Now, on this side of all of that, we try to instill in him every day hope. You're doing better. It's going better. There's hope. Yeah, Dad, but I lost my livelihood. I lost this. I lost that. Yeah. You're not going to be able to be an electrician anymore. And you're not going to work at the mouse's house. But you're going to have to adapt. And in life, we're going to have to adapt. But if we have God on our side, that adaptation is going to be easier. And that's one of the things I keep trying to instill in you. And I'm so elated to hear about Jeremy obeying the gospel this morning. Last time I talked to him, I had no clue. Didn't even talk about anything like that. and then to have them out of the blue obey. And yes, Al, it is in Maryland that they live. Amazing. Well, living hope. Not just hope. Living. I will survive. I will realize. Because I've got an inheritance. I've got an inheritance. And that inheritance is imperishable. Imperishable. Stop and think about it. An inheritance is a portion of an estate. And it was made the substance of a gift to you. The one who gave you that inheritance is the God of heaven. It's not Musk. It's not Gates or any other billionaire. But it's the God of heaven. And it is incapable of perishing, incapable of corruption. It's not subject to faults or errors. You could be listed as an heir. But what you think you're going to get could be eaten up, and it might not be there. You have an inheritance. How blessed that is. Because what it says someone cared enough about you to give you hope and to provide for you in such a way that it will not in any way be taken away from you by anyone other than you. So there's kind of like a tontine put into it. And you're the only one that can violate and take it away. It's living, it's active, and we long for that. We strive for that. And we hold on to that hope. Look at verse 8 in 1 Peter 1. And you have not seen him, you love him. And though you do not see him now, but believe in him, you greatly rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory. Joy inexpressible. Wow. Words can't begin to describe it. Words can't begin to explain the full dynamics of it in any way, shape, or form. It is so wonderful. So joy is delight, gladness, happiness. But you know what? I'm incapable of expressing it verbally. You ever been there? Where you're not capable of really sharing your emotions because you're overjoyed? Think of the birth of your child. The first one. And you can't begin to explain it because of the joy. The second one, Third one, but that first one, joy. Well, as Christians, even though life gets hard, we have joy that we can't express. And like I said, I'm not an effervescent guy. I'm, pretty kind of straightforward. Unless you say we're going to Handel's for ice cream. Then the joy comes out. Go for a ride car, go for a ride car. Go get ice cream, go get it. But we can still have quiet joy. And it can still be welled up in us that we can't get it out. Peter is really expressing himself in such a unique way. Then he starts talking about obedient children. He said, I don't want you to be conformed to this world. The word obedient means under submission, to listen, to attend to. And in doing some study on the word, it means to trust. Trust. If I've got faith in God, then I'm going to trust God fully, completely, totally. Because I know God has promised me an inheritance, which is incorruptible, will not fade away. And it is alive and active. And it's all because of the mercy he poured out on me. So yeah, I can be obedient. Do you find that the longer you're a member of the body of Christ, the easier it is to be obedient? I was thinking about that the other day. The things that at one time tempted me no longer tempt me. I thought, wow, that's great. That's one less thing I have to be concerned about. Let's move on to the next and to the next. But no, it doesn't tempt me. Handles ice cream? Yes. Some of the other things? No. And you're going, why do you have this thing about Handel's ice cream? Afterwards, I'll tell you all about it. But obedient. Jesus, although he was a son, he learned obedience from the things which he suffered. And having become perfect, he became to all those who obey him the source of eternal salvation. So I hold on to that. In Ephesians, the 3rd chapter, we will just make reference to it because time won't allow us to get there. But write it down in your notes if you're taking notes. Spend a little bit of time looking at Ephesians 3 and verses 13 through 21. Because what he talks about there is about the love of God, the love of Christ, that is beyond whatever we can wrap our mind around. And we're beyond stumped and stymied, trying to figure out each and every word to express just how blessed we are. We keep coming back to that word, blessed. When was the last time you shared with someone the joy of being a Christian? Here's what it means to me. This is what I feel. I'm happy I'm a child of God. I really long for you to be one too. When I was in high school, I was being given the pressure put on me, the bum's rush, so to speak, to join Demo Lay. And they were, saying, oh man, if you become part of Demo Lay, you're going to be just this amazing and it's going to be all this wonderful stuff. And I go, first of all, why would any group want me? And so I did some research on Demo Lay. And there would be no way ever I would be part of it. Because it is an entry point to the Masonic Temple and to the Masonic Lodge. And I go, I want no part of that. I wasn't even a Christian then. But they were telling me all about it. Why don't you tell anybody about being a Christian? Is it precious to you? I mean, here was a group of secular kids trying to tell me and convince me of something I want to know part of. Wouldn't have benefited me at all. But you're part of something that would benefit all of mankind. And you've got joy in expressing it. I'm going to challenge you to try to express it. Then Peter talks about lusts, verse 14. The former lust, well, we just talked about it. What was, no longer is. The longer I'm a Christian, the more I'm not bothered by those things. Each one of us faces different struggles. To the former lust, which were yours in ignorance. Former, happening prior to. Lust, we know what that is. A strong desire, an intense longing. We had those one time, we don't have them anymore. Verse 18. Knowing that you are not redeemed with perishable things like silver or gold from your futile way of life, inherited from your forefathers, but with the precious blood, the Lamb unblemished and spotless. He talks about perishable. Well, we already discussed that, didn't we? Peter talked about it with regards to the inheritance. But he comes back and brings it up. He said, now on the flip side, you weren't bought with perishable things like silver or gold. And we don't think of silver or gold as perishable. We think of them as tangible, as real, as not going away. Gold and silver are elements of the earth. The only value put on them is the value man puts on them. You realize that? If mankind all of a sudden decided, I don't know, tungstenite had value and worth, man, we'd all buy into it. But gold and silver are perishable. Everything in this life is perishable. The only thing that's not perishable is the inner you and the imperishable quality of the inheritance in heaven. We were not redeemed with silver or gold, but with precious blood as of a lamb unblemished and spotless. The word precious, costly, dear, of great value. That's what we were bought with. So when you sit back and you look at the adjectives of 1 Peter, pretty impressive. And it helps us to realize just how fortunate we are. Those of us that have put on Christ in the waters of baptism, we have all these. We have them all. They're part and parcel of who we are now. We talked about Jeremy, part and parcel of what he holds on to. Last week we talked about Adam Moon and him putting on Christ. And he has these things now. And Joy, even as old as she is, has them and has enjoyed them for decade upon decade upon decade upon decade. I was sitting while we were having, just about ready to do the Lord's Supper. And I thought, how many times have I participated in partaking of the Lord's Supper? How many times have I passed the plate to my wife, held the cup container for Linda? How many times? Thousands. Oh, well over 2,000. And with each time, we go back with the memory hook to exactly what Peter's talking about here in 1 Peter, the first chapter. We separate those things that are vexing us in life. We remember back to the sacrifice of Christ. We realize about the mercy, the love, the grace, that we're heirs according to the promise, that we've got it all because we are children of God. And Christ is our Redeemer. And he is our Master. And how blessed are we? Well, the lesson is yours this morning. And it was one just to hopefully lift us up. But if you've never put on Christ in the waters of baptism, you really need to consider that. We'll be glad to sit down and study with you, showing you that unless you're baptized for the remission of sin, you don't enjoy any of what we talked about. You don't. But once you obey from the heart, and you come up out of that water of baptism for the remission of your sins, God remembers what he promised. As Peter said a couple chapters later, when he wrote it corresponding to that, baptism now saves you. Not the removal of filth from the flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. You come up out of the waters of baptism, you appeal to God. Grant me mercy. Grant me forgiveness. I want to be an heir according to the promise. I want hope that is alive and active. I want everything Peter says and writes about here. That's what I want. If that's what you want and you haven't done that yet, we'll be glad to assist you.